It's taking forever. I know, the eternal project. But that's how this stuff rolls. And you have to just accept that when you get involved in this sort of thing. And just know that keep moving forward, keep checking everything, keep crossing your T's and dotting your I's and then double checking, because you can't make any mistakes with this stuff. So this is not the update I wanted to give you. The update, this installment, was supposed to be cackling this thing on 90% and getting our adjustment set between the valve and the clutch. Well, we didn't get that far. We were supposed to be there Wednesday. So where we left off with this, we had fired it on gasoline, ran it off the squirt bottle. Everything went exactly according to plan. It was perfect. We set the air gap on the butterflies, tentatively, ballpark where we needed to be. And then the plan was to finish connecting a few things. We needed to get the fuel shutoff hooked up. We needed to get the throttle cable in here. And we needed to get Jeff down here with some nitro, and we were going to fire this thing up on Wednesday and go the next step with it. And I'll explain, I'll give you the whole sequence that's going to happen at the end of this. So this was supposed to be for Wednesday. And of course, you have to go over everything before you do this. So I checked the valves, I set the lash on them, reset the lash on them, everything looked good there. Connected all the fuel lines, made sure the check valves were right, made sure everything was tight, made sure, all of that good stuff. And then the last thing I was gonna do was just double check all of our tentative adjustments on the clutch. So we had set the air gap at 30 thousandths, which is on the tight side. Put the can on it, had everything assembled, and I says, all right, let's just double check everything in the clutch can. So with the can in place, I removed these two bolts, and these two bolts are in here to keep the pack compressed so that you can slide the input shaft in and out. Like so. If you loosen these, the pack just moves around, so you can't slide the input shaft on and off. And you have to be able to do that to get the clutch can on and off. So with the clutch can on, I pulled these two bolts, and I realized, hey, I really don't have very much space between the fingers and the throwout bearing. So I got in there with a screwdriver through the inspection hole and pulled the fingers back, and sure enough, they contacted the throwout bearing. Okay, that's a dead stop. Cannot go any further. Why? Because these fingers need to be able to come back freely, and if they contact anything on their path, the clutch will just slip. It's the weight on these fingers, this nut and bolt assembly here, and the design of the finger, that as the engine is spinning, these get pulled out, and as they get pulled out, they compress the clutch pack together. All right, so I found that if I put a screwdriver between the finger and the donut, or the cover over here, if I put a screwdriver in here and pulled back, they contacted the throwout bearing. So at that point, it's like, okay, full stop. We can't have this. Otherwise, the engine will never, or I should say the clutch will never lock, or even come close to locking. You've got that resistance. So we had to regroup a little bit. Can came back off, and now we needed to find a good ½ inch or so, or thereabouts, between the fingers and the throwout bearing. So, just so you guys know, this is all replacement 1930s Ford truck parts. This is like a 1936 Ford truck. Same thing with the design on these clutch cans, and the hardware, the candlestick that this rides on, and the cross shaft that operates it. All 1930s Ford truck. So we needed to find some clearance, and so what we did was we ground down the on the other side of the candlestick here. So you see it bolts there with these 4 bolts. On the other side of this, we ground down the pads that this rides against, and then we had to add these two holes, and these springs, this retainer, actually fits down into these holes. And with that, we got this all the way back. So we picked up not quite a 1/2 inch, but just about a 1/2 inch. And so that's all ready to go back together again now. Now, if we hadn't have done that, as soon as we actually tried to load this thing, the clutch would have just slipped. It wouldn't have gone anywhere. So now we've got our clearance. And it's a mixed match of parts. We're dealing with a mixed match of parts. And that's not an excuse. I'm just telling you how it is. Because we're using the clutch can that came with this car, with this engine. The clutch can had a certification sticker on it, which means it'll probably cert even still today. So I says, all right, well, let's just stick with that. But this can is slightly shallower than the one we would need with an iron block Chrysler. And the reason I say that is because the crankshafts that go in this engine have an extended flange. Whereas later early Chryslers, like ones, the Donovan 417s, early style Chryslers, but manufactured or built during, let's say, the 1980s, 1990s, would have a shorter flange. So with the shorter flange, the flywheel here would be much closer to the motor plate. This has the extended flange and a can that's designed for the shorter flange. So we needed to make up this space someplace else, and it had to be here at the throwout bearing. So it all goes together now. We shouldn't have any problems with it. Hey, shouldn't have any problems with it. You never should have problems, right? Unless it's a fuel car. You know, here's the great thing about this stuff, and this is why sane people stay away from it, right? Because the level of care and attention and detail that these things require is constant, right? Every little thing, every little nuance has to be exactly right? Exactly right. And it's set on self-destruct anyway, okay? Everything, all of the bits and pieces that you so caringly, you know, carefully, methodically work on and massage and like make everything just so, well, it all blows up. Okay, the clutch is the clutch literally is a self-destruct mechanism. It functions by eating itself alive. Right? Same thing with these engines. They function by eating themselves alive. About the only thing on this whole deal that doesn't become destroyed during the course of normal use is the freaking valve covers, the plug wires if you're lucky. Everything else is throwaway. So that's why normal people stay away from nitro cars. You know what I mean? If you run it on gasoline, you run it on alcohol, yeah, okay, all those things you cared about, all those little details you covered and made just perfect, well, they'll kind of stay that way. No, not with this. The whole damn thing is a bomb. All it wants to do is unscrew itself, melt itself into the freaking ground, make you broke, right? It wants to just kill you in every freaking way. And that's how they become as addictive as they are. So that's the update. We have, I had to be out of my mind to get involved. So we have the can ready to go. The throwout bearing is clearanced. The clutch fingers will just barely clear. It'll get better as the clutch pack wears, but that's besides the point. For right now, we're not worried about that. We're worried about just getting our initial setting. We needed to order a front seal for the reverser from Lenko, and that should be here within a couple of few days. We got our shortened coupler back, so that's ready to go back in. We mounted the gas pedal, the throttle, that we robbed out of the funny car in here now. We just welded this bracket right in here with this big washer. We got a nut and bolt there, and so this is in place and it clears everything else. We ran our fuel shut off. I gotta weld a 1/4 20 bolt to the inside frame rail over here top rate this, and here's our line for the throttle. So all of that stuff is good to go. Yeah. All right. So the next step, reassemble all the stuff once we get our reverser seal, and then we're gonna have Jeff down here. He's got Nitro, he's got everything all ready to go. The next step is to fire this thing on fuel, make sure the fuel system is functioning correctly, get a ballpark barrel valve setting, get a ballpark clutch stall speed setting. The clutch has a stall speed, just like an automatic transmission. It's just the right amount of resistance needed against the weights at idle to create just the slightest amount of drag. When these things are set correctly, they're going to be, they're going to feel exactly like an automatic transmission. You would never know the difference. If you were driving this thing and the engine was running and you took your hand off the brake, it would roll forward just like it had an automatic transmission. You'd pull on a brake, it'll stop just like it has an automatic transmission. So the next step, like I said, is to get the barrel valve adjusted and match that to the stall speed on the clutch. And the barrel valve adjustment, I'll go over this again when we get to that step, but the correct barrel valve adjustment for what we're doing here is going to be that when the back wheels are just freewheeling. So picture this, the engine is sitting here running, the back wheels are freewheeling. What we want to see is just a very light mist out of the pipes, right? So just a little light mist of nitro, just like a slight wetness out of the pipes. And then as soon as we pull the brake and the wheels stop, the stall speed should be set so that as soon as the wheels stop and the engine sees a load, that mist dries up. All right, and we'll go through all of that. So we'll have to probably run it 2 or 3 times on fuel to get that balance correct. And then once we've got that, we can drop it on the ground and start breaking stuff on the ground. I don't know how we haven't broken anything yet, because we haven't really done anything with it yet except to run on gasoline for a couple of minutes. But yeah, it takes time. It takes time. Be patient. We'll get there. It'll be spectacular. I'll see you tomorrow.